What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and Modern Warfare has made a pretty big oopsie. In fact, they've angered all of the blue-haired checkmarks on Twitter who are using it as an opportunity to own gamers. And they've also angered a lot of Russian fans. It's a huge mess, which has led to the lowest score of any Call of Duty game I've ever seen. Now, a brief bit of history to give you a little bit of background of the whole history not being accurate, a little explanation onto why people are trying to use this to own gamers. If you remember Battlefield 5 coming out, it had obviously a large presence of female in terms of the marketing. The game itself, maybe not so much. The argument was obviously this is a fake wokeness thing. And it was all proven by the studio coming out and saying, don't like it, don't buy it. And of course, Battlefield 5 ended up a colossal failure. You also saw a lot of articles like this. Battlefield 5 fans who failed history are mad that the game has women in it. So it was a whole, is this historically accurate? Is this not historically accurate? At the end of the day, it was clearly virtue signaling. This was confirmed, again, by the studio's reaction. Don't like it, don't buy it. They also had a company party saying it's everyone's Battlefield, and they put up all the gamer tweets to own the gamers. Images of that leaked, which was a huge hubbub for the Battlefield 5 team. So, at the end of the day, it's video games. Were there women on the Battlefield? Yes. Were they prevalent? No, they never have been, and they will never be. Unless it's a particular unit, or they'll say, oh, there's random snipers that were all females. And yes, okay. If people are out there saying no women have ever taken part in the Battlefield, they're incorrect. But what people were reacting to was the fact that you had a one-armed woman character at the center of the trailer, in the forefront, like, she's out there just raw. I'm all that is woman. Hear me roar. Then you saw articles like this. Battlefield fans who failed history are mad that the game has woman in it. DICE is returning the World War II Battlefield and is doing so with the help of females, including the game's trailer. Following the game's reveal trailer, confirmation that it will include women, some fragile fans have confirmed they've never read a book by protesting what they see as historical inaccuracy. Please keep women out of my games. Again, this is a completely disingenuous representation of the backlash. Again, it was more nuanced than just re-woman. It was, okay, you have this woman amputee at the forefront, and also ignoring the context of how all video game developers have chosen to focus on wokenomics rather than economics, which has played out poorly for most of them in terms of return on investment. Online, the infantile cry is rallied around its own hashtag, not my Battlefield, and full of users shrieking about political correctness. Again, I don't know if it was a politically correct thing specifically, but it was absolutely virtue signaling. It was absolutely inclusion for the sake of inclusion. Nobody, and I mean nobody, no significant portion of people anywhere bought Battlefield 5 because woman in the trailer. Hey, good job making a bad, unrealistic SJW World War II game, wrote on Twitter. See the downvotes on your YouTube trailer video? You have till October to fix it to get a realistic, gritty World War II experience. Very disappointed with the new Battlefield trailer, wrote another. Again, you have abandoned historical accuracy for political correctness. In a way, I don't think that the Battlefield series has ever claimed to replace textbooks or encyclopedias, but it does pride itself on having this type of accurate representation. But now we see Call of Duty Modern Warfare kind of going the other way with a pretty bad oopsie. So you basically see in the game one character talking about the highway of death and saying the Russians bombed it during the invasion, ending people trying to escape. In fact, this was the Americans who did this. The coalition, for example, we should say. Not necessarily just Americans, because the, coalition included more than just Americans. But nonetheless, it wasn't the Russians. It just clearly wasn't the Russians. And you see a lot of these anti-gamer hot takers using this as an excuse to dunk on gamers. That's why you're getting all the retweets and likes. You have the U.S. did this. Whoever wrote this should literally check themselves. And then we're getting mad over a fictional video game I see. And there's any amount of just complete wokeness in this thread. At the end of the day, Modern Warfare did do an oopsie here, and people aren't happy about it. I mean, look, you have to reverse the situation here and say, what if they had taken something that was like a Russian operation and said that the Americans did it? I think that people would be rightfully mad about it. The solution here is obvious, and it's always been obvious, to stop being lazy and essentially regurgitating historical events and changing minor details. If you're going to have the historical event, have the historical event. Don't be like Battlefield, where they took a historical event that was run by men and replaced it with women. That was a PC SJW move that made people mad. Here in Modern Warfare, changing the Americans to the Russians is absolutely, undeniably a marketing move. How could you have avoided this oopsie? Well, it's pretty clear. Just don't rely on specific events. Don't host your game in specific countries unless you want to adhere to absolute fact. If you want to have, ripped from the headlines actual events, then you have to be accurate. And if you don't want to, say, for example, depict Americans, a large portion of your audience, in a negative light, maybe don't pick one of our more questionable decisions in this world. I mean, why not have the truth there if that's what you're going for? You can't take a real event, call it the highway of death, and have it so easily verifiable, and then change an obvious detail. And by the way, Russians bad is a little played out. I know I've got Russian followers. I'm sure that 99.9% of Russians are good people. And you have this specter. Sure, there are bad things that go on in that country. There are bad things that go on in every country. But this is a pretty bad oopsie, and people are really mad about it. If you look at the reviews, the game has a 2.4 score on Metacritic. This is about as low as I've seen any game go. This is obviously a review brigade, behavior that, by the way, I still support. I think that it's our only avenue to push back against game developers, especially when we have many game developers hiding out on Epic. Remember, one of the big benefits that Epic Game Store has, obviously, is the bigger developer cut. You make more money as a developer by using their platform because they can give you a discount because you're using their architecture to build it. Fair. But another big benefit is the fact that Epic does not allow reviews and will probably never allow reviews. This is to protect developers. This is why people love Steam so much. Not only because Steam has an excellent return policy, but because I can see the reviews of people that have verifiably purchased and played the game. I can see how many hours they've played, and I can read the review. Is it possible to have played 10 hours and lie in your review? Absolutely. Fanboys and fangirls exist in both directions. People that are overly positive about a game or people that are overly negative about the game are both fanboys and fangirls, in my opinion. Call of Duty has a lot of them. But in this particular case, you can take a look at the reviews where you have 270 positive, 967 negative, and they're all basically the same. If I review this now, I wonder if they're still, 981. It's getting crushed. Almost 1,000 out of 1,276 total. Call it 1,000 out of 1,300 reviews are negative. I've been waiting for this game some time. Started on my 2070 RTX. Problems. Okay. Legitimate negative review. Activision's still using the story. Bad Russian guys. What we saw in most of the games the last decade. So there's a question. What are they selling it for? What are they selling it in Russia? Activision made 5-hour single-player mode, then ruined all respect to the company from Russia gaming community. Here's a comment in Russian. Vodka, vodka, blodka, ha ha ha. Where's my Russian bear, an atomic reactor? Give me AK-47 and RPG. I show you Russian power. So it seems like the Russians are getting a little woke. You know, they don't exactly like how they're being depicted in this game, and I understand that. It'd be the same way if they're, depicting every gamer as an angry gamer and any other nationality. I think gamers are a nationality, obviously. You see a lot of negative Russian comments. Evil Russians only attack women and children, and good soldiers from America can save everyone. Another Russophobia. They're talking about that. Russophobia is not appropriate. Dear Activision, there is no gray morality in this game. Only bad Russians and good Americans. Can you show us hundreds of Russian... we could show us the hundreds of American crimes in the world in the next game. You know, it's a pretty big oopsie. And again, could have all been avoided if Activision... Well, not really Activision so much, but the developers of this game could have spent a little more time developing an original story rather than just, copy pasting an original story and just changing a few words. This is the equivalent of a fifth grader turning in a book report that they printed off the internet. Now you could see Polygon, Kotaku, all these websites are going to pick it up. By the way, I don't think this will affect sales too much. People already bought the game. Down the line, maybe lower review scores will turn some people away. Certainly Russians, people of Russia or Russian descent, probably don't like this game very much. Call of Duty Modern Warfare being review brigaded over Russian portrayal. Consumers are lashing out, attacking the game on in Metacritic. Now, if you see the way, most of our news actors talk these days, you could turn on one of the 2 or 3 main news acting channels out there, and all they do is talk about Mo Russia. And this game is kind of more of it. And it's kind of disappointing that they couldn't just take generic people, make them evil. I don't understand why you have to attach, a nationality to it. It's just asking for trouble in current year. Just days after release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, some consumers are expressing anger at how Russian soldiers are depicted in that game. The most visible result of that anger is so-called review brigading campaign. Modern Warfare's user-generated score is a 2.4 out of 10. Some commenters even accuse Infinity Ward of shifting blame, pinning historical attacks on Russia that were in fact the work of the United States and Western powers in the Middle East. That's verifiably true. So we see through this Chowderhead guy who is a streamer, and he is the Godzilla of being a gay disaster. So we know probably why this tweet exists. It's probably a own the gamer thing. People just shift what outrages them as long as it fits their needs. Disgusting Russophobic garbage created for one thing. Stinking anti-Russian propaganda, writes one reviewer on Metacritic, which is now pouring out all the independent media in orders of their Washington masters. 0 out of 10. The plot of Infinity Ward's latest first-person shooter does hang the blame on many injustices in its narrative Russian-flagged military forces. These include regular army troops and other special forces. One of the most shocking levels in the game shows a Russian soldier under Barkov's command invading the home of the protagonist Farah when she was just a child. That scene, which occurs during, all sorts of the chemical stuff that everyone's upset about. Again, is it supposed to be real or not? To me, at the end of the day, it's still a video game, all right? But it's a huge misstep to take actual historical events and change small things. It's just asking for problems, and this is a huge oopsie for Infinity Ward and Activision because these review scores are going to stick around. Now, I haven't gotten a chance to play the campaign mode yet. I got it installed on Friday because I promised I would support the game. Haven't had enough time to log in and play it yet. I'm hoping to play it tonight, but to be fair, probably not a good look for these dudes. We're going to have to see how this all shakes out. They could probably just change some of the wording in the dialogue. I don't know. I would expect them to issue some sort of apology, of course. The article goes on to say, of course, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is a work of fiction, but it's also worth noting that in the game's cooperative missions, which carry forward the narrative of single-player campaign, players will eventually become allied with the Russians. Even at E3, developers from Infinity Ward stressed that it was important for them to show troops from every country in nuanced and considered light. Probably not a good idea to copy your work off Wikipedia to make it so easy to be caught, though. That's a pretty spicy oopsie, Modern Warfare. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.